been a one to play it safe. I might play a little dirty someday, and I'll follow with faith. They say I'm the chosen one. I know what it takes to be a king, and be the song everybody wanna sing, and bring heart beneath, and be the chosen one.
What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube?
This fire, I was born to be, making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.
How is everybody doing this evening? I tell you what, I am fired up because it's the weekly lawn and garden show. Get some dove horns in here. I apologize in advance. I am going to be playing with this board all night tonight. That's the whole reason I got it, was to play with it. So here it comes. Y'all are in for a wild ride, if you know what I'm saying. What's up, everybody? My goodness, did y'all watch the Vols play the Georgia Bulldogs yesterday? If you did, my goodness, that was, I'm not going to say painful, because there were moments of happiness throughout it where I was like, you know what? Somehow, some way, we might end up winning more than one game this year. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. You like that green screen picking up on my hat? I was wearing it backwards earlier, and it was even sillier. This is my Lushy Lawns hat, and I want to wear it in support of Lushy, but, you know, it's going to hide on me, but that's all right. That's all right. Let me bring that music on down. All right, everybody, welcome to the weekly lawn and garden show. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, a little bit about me. My name is Matt Martin. I have a channel here on YouTube called The Grass Factor, and what I like to talk about is turf grass management. My background is turf grass management, and started in golf, made my way over to lawn care, got into lawn care, never could get out because I tell you what, I really enjoy it. So I went on to work corporate side of lawn care and be self-employed in lawn care, and now all of a sudden I find myself in a fertilizer manufacturing position. Kind of an odd place to be, but, you know, when you're there, you're there. So anyway, the things I like to talk about are the science behind why we do what we do. So I host this show because typically in videos I do not tell people how to do things. I tell you why things are typically done, and then it's up to you to decide whether or not you should do it. And so I like to do that on things like tonight. That's exactly right. Strike it rich, man. This is my Lushy Lawns hat. If you can see here, Lush Lawns, Lushy, and I'm going to wear it, and I don't care about the green screen. That's all I got to say about that, if you know what I'm saying. 3 cheers for Lushy Lawns. All right. So we are going to keep moving on into this. Look at Trent. I don't think so. So also for y'all that are first time tuning in, the way this typically works is that this is a question and answer format, or an open format, as I call it. And what I mean by that is you ask questions and I attempt to provide answers. I'm going to go ahead and put this disclaimer in right now and let you know I make mistakes. I make lots of mistakes, and I may give out bad advice. If I give you advice, do not take it as gospel, because we are all human and fallible and make mistakes, myself included. So, that being said, I think we got all the bad stuff out of the way. We are going to roll on to the roll call. This is my favorite part of the evening. I catch a lot of hell for it, but I'm going to go ahead and keep doing it anyway. And I tell you what, John Teague was first. Sorry, Lushy. So big what's up to Lushy. Social support for getting in here early. Dan Espinosa, what's going on, my man? Kevin Shepard, some beach. Lambert, my favorite attorney, is here. B-Town most wanted roll call. That's what I'm talking about. We did look good through 1.5 quarters yesterday, and that's about it, though. The Lawn Stripes. Got 3 cheers for you. 3 cheers for you, the hardest working man in lawn care. Shane Brady in the house, too. Jeremy Watkins. Eric Ellis, Yard Mom was hanging out in here. Gabriel Jordan, Super TA from Jersey. That's what I'm talking about. Who else we got here? BB, Camilo, Grass Thief. More of the lawn stripes, B-Ruck, Schaefer Lawn Care, and property maintenance. Yawn, I'm tired, he said. Me too. And I've got no real reason to be, but a little bit I am. St. Louis Lawn Guru is here. DowAgro is here. The Lawn Fix. All right. I think we are going to go ahead. And, of course, we had Trent Burns in here, too, if you know what I'm saying. I think we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions because I saw him coming up here early. And I'm going to start here. And there, let's see. I'm going to start with B-Ruck. B-Ruck wants to know, was thinking about using rubber mulch for some of my beds. Any thoughts on how the zinc and various chemicals in rubber may affect soil composition in nearby perennials? B-Ruck, it all depends on how it releases. So it would vary, what is the melting point of the rubber mulch you use? Is it a pure rubber or is it recycled from tires? I mean, there's lots of different things that go into it. Personally, and usually it's petroleum based, right? So that's how they'll get it to hold together, is with some sort of petroleum base. Is it a good thing? Probably not. But if you're looking for something and you're just absolutely tired of the work, go for it. I don't think you're going to kill the plants by any means, but you're going to sacrifice a lot of that organic matter generation that takes place from using regular mulch. So just going to go ahead and throw that out there. Let's see what else we have here. The Lawn Fix says, I'm done with fescue in the South, Georgia, and switching to Bermuda. What's the best time to sod in the spring? Also thinking of using Celebration Bermuda instead of the tips. Your thoughts? I would check the in-depth trials on all of your ideas as far as Bermuda is concerned. I'm not as familiar with Celebration, so I'm not going to be able to advise you there. I would just check in-depth and related to your area and make your best decision that way. As far as the best time to sod in the spring, any time outside of transition. So you can put it down when it's dormant, no problem. You can put it down after it comes out of dormancy. As it's transitioning from going out of dormancy, as it's going from in dormancy to out of dormancy is not the ideal time to put it down. So as long as you're outside of there, you are going to be good to go. What is this wet stuff falling from the sky? That's what I'm talking about. And the Lawn Fix also wants to know, thinking of using ryegrass to overseed into Bermuda, do you recommend annual or perennial rye? Also, do you recommend killing it off in spring or just mowing it down and hoping it dies? The Lawn Fix, 100%, you do not use annual ryegrass, and I will tell you why. Annual ryegrass has a process called allolepathy. And so that is a chemical that is emitted by the plant as a stress response or crowding response. It's a natural physical chemical response from the plant that will exude a chemical the plant actually produces internally to attempt to kill the competition around it, because it's thinking that the competition is what's causing the stress, even though it may be something like heat. So do not ever use perennial ryegrass. Do not ever use annual ryegrass. You can use perennial ryegrass, but understand it does too have the same tendency. So what's most important is that it's not as strong as annual ryegrass, and is to spray it out. And the earlier you can spray it out, the better. So as a general rule of thumb, May 1st, May 15th is probably about as late as you want to go. Mowing it down low and hoping it dies off is not a good management strategy, because a lot of the genetically modified rye that we're using now, these newer cultivars, are so tolerant of the extremes. It's not high enough turf quality to tolerate the extremes where it would be desirable as a lawn type. But what happens is that you may lose 80% of it, and 20% of this rye that remains will continue to green up and go dormant, green up and go dormant, green up and go dormant, green up and go dormant. And that will affect the performance of your Bermuda grass. So use perennial ryegrass and definitely spray it out is my recommendation. And them dogs took out your balls. They did, but it's okay. Eli, what watering schedule would you recommend after germination of turf-type tall fescue? I would get it down and starve it of water as fast as possible. I'm one of the ones that come from the philosophy that if you keep it on water for too long, it will fit. Eric Gray is your nephew? That is what I'm talking about, Roshan Parker. Man, how awesome is that? That's good stuff right there. That's what I'm talking about. We got Vols in the chat tonight. That is most important. So what I would do is pull it off the water as fast as possible. So once it's up, say you got it to 2 inches or 1.5 inches, something like that, still not able to be cut, go ahead, starve it a little bit. Maybe drop it to like every 3 days a week. But here's the thing is that you have to be very cognizant of paying attention to stress. When you see stress, that is when you turn on the water. Don't wait until it goes completely dormant to turn on the water, or don't just stick to its dedicated day. Only on the third day am I going to turn on the water. That's not how it works. You have to watch and wait for it to begin to wilt and then turn your water on. What's up, Richard Masterson? Glad you are here, sir. How to kill wild violet in one app in cool season. Usually use Speed Zone Red. You can't. When it comes to killing wild violets, purely you cannot. I did a video that is the ultimate guide to broadleaf weed control. One of the things we looked at was wild violets. Wild violets in particular are just not going to be killed by one application. The herbicide with the highest efficacy is triclopyr. Combining other kickers with triclopyr, preferably in ester forms, will increase either the speed or the duration of the kill you get, but multiple applications will still be necessary. There is no one spray kill. Let's see here. Yeah, green hat and green screen. I don't mind at all. What's going on, Ace of Spades? How are you, good sir? Mr. John Jastrzewski up there in New Jersey is what I'm talking about. Why is it difficult to get info and maximum rates on dithiapyr? It shouldn't be, Garrett Scott. You can look up the application recommendations for the label Dimension. Dimension has the exact same active ingredient as dithiapyr. Well, that is the active ingredient of Dimension is dithiapyr. So I would look up the label for Dimension, and it will give you all the information you could possibly need. Robert Butler says, hey, Matt, I'm coming up on 3 weeks after seeding. I haven't mowed yet, but it's almost time. How long should I wait to fertilize with ammonium sulfate? You can do it now. You're not necessarily causing any problems. The general recommendation is after your second cut, you can go ahead with it. But if you do it a little early, you might make some people angry. You wouldn't make me angry with it, if you know what I'm saying. How do you be a ticket in Georgia? Says Real Dad. I do not know. I do not know. All right, let's see here. Is there Carbon Earth Co. merch? There is at merch.carbonearth.co. Saving my money for GIE. That's what I'm talking about. Andy Harrison says, I put down X-Start 7 days ago on bare dirt and had beautiful green baby grass everywhere. Amazing. And, I would love to say that is the result of X-Start, but let me tell you. You can germinate seeds in a wet paper towel. So really, you should be thanking yourself, Andy Harrison, because you did a phenomenal job with your watering to get it up in 7 days. And you had optimal temperatures. So the period of establishment, so from the second cut on to the amount of development you can get by the end of the year may be a testament to X-Start. But getting it up and established in 7 days, really, you deserve the credit, not the fertilizer. How do I encourage the growth of rhizomes in rhizomatous tall fescue? That is a difficult question to answer, Gary, because it is controlled genetically by the plant. There are lots of things that I tried to do last year to it to alter it, but there was nothing really I could pinpoint one way or another to generate more rhizomes. Really, it's all going to come down to the bulk density of your soil, how tight is your soil. And what I mean by bulk density, I'm not talking about I'm talking about actually like removing parts of your soil. So it would be like in a very aggressive aeration and removing the cores, reducing the bulk density, right? That would be one way, and then of course the other way would be, since that's going to be related to shoot generation and root generation, is going to be focusing on those parts of your NPK program. So phosphorus and potassium will be your friend, but understand this: if you want phosphorus and potassium to be taken up into the plant, 99.9999999% of the time, what drives phosphorus and potassium utilization is nitrogen. So it's important to have some sort of balance there between your N, P, and K in order for the P and K to be utilized. Pro tip. Where's the Carbon Earth hats for sale? Okay, I will put this in the chat. Let me see here. merch.carbonearth.co. And I may, and bear with me, I may have to sneeze here. I got the mute button just in time. Oh my goodness. Okay. Using quinclorac and tenacity to kill mature crabgrass and other grassy weeds in one net. How high of a rate? You can safely go, I probably wouldn't go any higher than 5 ounces per acre of tenacity. And with quinclorac, you can go all the way up to the full rate, which would be 3/4 of a pound of active ingredient. So if you're running liquid, that would be 1.45 ounces per 1,000. If you're running a 75 DF, then you would be running a full pound of the DF per acre. So those would be max rates. I would not exceed that, because even though you exceed that, you're no longer going to get a better kill on your you're not going to get a better kill on your crabgrass. You're actually going to begin doing more damage to your desirable turf. So just keep that in mind. The higher rate isn't going to work better on the weeds. That means it's going to work better on killing your good grass. Throwing in bent grass in transition zone 1, what's the latest I can throw down a tiny bit of seed to fill in any bare spots? And when and do you think I need a pre-emergent of any kind? I would not put down a pre-emergent of any kind this fall. Next spring, you should be good to go once it comes out, thickens up a bit. You can put down seed as late as you want. Just understand that it may not come up until the spring because of your area. Cars2 says, hey there, Matt. What would you use in place of straw to cover seed? Looking for something that will work well and not cause weeds. I would use something that is probably derived from paper. So there's a product called Seed Aid, AIDE, Seed Aid. You can put that down. It comes in a granular. It does not spread well from a spreader, but you can spread it by hand. And when it gets wet, it goes from being like a ball like this, and it forms like a mat on the ground, and it will do a good job of protecting your seeds. A hell of a lot better than straw. Do not ever use straw. It is a nightmare. Howdy, LCEA, lawn care addicts. Matt, London 4D. Matt, I'm new to lawn care. I decided to pick my own seed. I bought 7 different kinds. Fine fescue. I thought fine meant good, not 1/16 of inch wide. Are there problems with this type of fescue in North Carolina? London, unfortunately, yes, there is a major problem. Fine fescue is not very heat tolerant, and it tends to work better in like North Dakota, or if you are under extreme dense shade, or you have an extreme slope that cannot be maintained with a mower or weed eater. It's very slow growing, and particularly in our area, as hot as it is, it does not like to be mowed. You do not want to mow it. So, yeah, there you go. Let's see. Where do you get perennial rye? Is that what was asked? Let me see here. Where do you get pin mulch? I have no idea. Hey, the grass factor. Finally getting some rain in East Tennessee. Hopefully it doesn't wash my seed away too bad. That's what I'm talking about. It's supposed to be a low and slow, a super low and slow type rain over the next 24 to 48 hours. So we should be good. Phil Cagle, go Big Orange. That's what I'm talking about. What is the best way to recover a lawn after an extreme application of glyphosate? Seed it, or depending on what your grass type is, you may have to resod it. So here's the thing. You can apply an extreme application of glyphosate, but here's really the kicker, is that the plant's only going to use what it's going to use, and then the rest of it becomes inert. So there's really no point in over applying glyphosate. Anything over, say, like 4 ounces per 1,000, you're not really going to be killing a whole lot more past that. Some weeds do require a higher rate than that. I get it. I understand. But after about 4 ounces per 1,000, you're pretty much just spinning your wheels on whatever it is you're trying to kill. Just keep that in mind. Matt, got tons of violets and some good type of woody white flowering weed, all under Kentucky trees, cool season. Safest herbicide to use under trees. that's a good question. I honestly would probably use something like quinclorac, or wait until it really cools off outside and use like quinclorac and triclopyr. Any herbicide you recommend that is okay for creeping bent? Don't. Yes, yes, there are. I don't. It depends on what you're going to be working with. So if you're dealing with something like broadleaf weeds, um, I would probably look at some of your 3-ways, or maybe even a 3-way ester, and make sure you use one designed for turf. So you probably want to get a name brand from like Syngenta or NuFarm, or one of those guys that will have a section on the label about usage on bent grass, especially depending on your height. So, most of your broadleaf herbicides that are safe on cool season grass will be safe on bent grass, but there's going to be extreme rate variances, especially if you're maintaining it at 100 thousandths of an inch or something. Lennon says, I bought Fourth Millennium, Titanium Firecracker, Amity, Regenerate, and Avenger 2. So you did a really good job of picking out which ones. I don't know which one of those is a fine fescue. In fact, I do not see any fine fescue in that Firecracker, unless it's Amity. I don't know Amity. But I do know Regenerate, I do know Avenger 2, I do know Titanium, and I do know Fourth Millennium, and none of those are fine fescue. And if they're fine right now, it's just because of establishment. And here's the other thing. I was actually talking to Paul Outlaw about this the other day, that in my front yard, I have the rhizomatous tall fescues, which they're from Mountain View Seeds. We'll say that. And they're very wide bladed, but it's actually the lawn is, I intentionally did not overseed it last year to let it thin out some, and it did much better this year. So I'm thinking, overseeding is what is causing these plants to remain in a very fine leaf textured form longer than they typically would. And I can say from experience that being so sparse with the seed, I had so much better results in the front yard, with better results with disease, better results with water management, just an overall healthier plant, backing down my seed rates. I love the idea, and I know everybody loves seeing it, that when you go out heavy with the seed rate and then you come home from work 4 or 5 days later, you got this great uniform plush filled in, ready to go lawn. That's great. That is horrible for the lawn. It's just not good at all. It looks good in the short term, but long term, you're setting yourself up for failure. So be sparing with the seed. Encourage those plants to mature. Everybody wants instant results. It doesn't work that way. You can go for instant results, but I'll tell you what's going to happen is you'll be asking next year about, oh, hey, how do I handle this extreme brown patch outbreak? Hey, this is the first time in my area I've ever seen a documented case of Pythium. What do I do? It's like, well, it could have been avoided by backing down your seed rates the previous year. I'm not saying you did, London. I'm just saying in general. I just moved to North Carolina from Texas, and I had Bermuda grass before I had St. Augustine. I want to do a fescue or Kentucky bluegrass. God bless you. Bless your heart, Paul Tanner. That's all I have to say. You're entering a very frustrating world. Ken Harbison says, hello, Matt. After overseeding and germination, what fertilizer do you prefer using to put your lawn to bed before winter? Germside Tall Fescue, Louisville, Kentucky, can use Stripe, Triple 10, slow release, fast release. Ken Harbison, use fast release, and you want a higher amount of nitrogen, and preferably a fair amount of ammoniacal nitrogen too. So ammoniacal nitrogen, maybe a little bit of urea is okay. All fast release, and definitely a higher amount of nitrogen and potassium. You're not going to need a whole lot of potassium then, because hopefully the grass is slowed down growing when you're making that application. Austin Snelling, what's going on from Oregon, man? How are you, good sir? When are you going to invent a real mowing Roomba robot that calibrates bed knife contact automatically? That's a fantastic question and a hell of a task to invent. You may be onto something there, Trent. You may be onto something. Hey, I appreciate that, Damon, man. I appreciate that. I got the new microphone. I got the new board set up over here, so I can drop in my dub horns when I need to. I got applause. I got people when they tell bad jokes. I got crickets. I don't even got drum hats. I got all kinds of stuff going on over here. I'm just happy as a clam. Oh boy. Tips. Whoa, where am I here? Hang on. Let's see. Billy G says, hey, Matt, I need to kill Bahia, my turf-type tall fescue, but only in small areas. Any help measuring out MSM to make enough to cover less than 1,000 square feet, or should I just glypho it? My goodness. Billy G, I don't know. It is already such a low use rate. You would have to get a scale with extreme precision. And when I say extreme precision, I mean you're going to need one that has the glass cover over it, so that way wind does not affect the weight or the mass, because you're probably measuring by mass at that point. So, man, I really don't have any tips to do it other than you start at a larger, mix for an acre, dissolve it in water, in like a gallon of water, and then you probably you're going to want to make sure the pH of that water is pretty close to 7, so it'll store for a period of time. It won't last a long time, but it may be the best way to do it. Or measure it for a gallon of water for 5,000 square feet, and then divide that gallon for 5,000 square feet by 5 to get your rate for 1,000 square feet. I hope that makes sense. We used to do that with Monument because it only came in 15-gram packs. In 5-gram packs, I'm sorry. Let's see here. Tips on bark scale for crepe myrtles. The bark is snow white and the leaves are jet black. How do I kill it? Will they die if it is this bad? They can die if it is that bad. So what I would recommend you do is this. So in the spring, you can do an imidacloprid drench. That would work. The other thing you can do, like right now, if you still see them and they are still active, you can do an application of dinotefuran, also known as Safari, and it's made by NuFarm. It's a great product. It's very fast acting. It does not last a long time. So if you do it now, just understand it's a quick application to knock everything down. In the spring, you want to do a more long-term application of something like imidacloprid that can grow into it, or imimectin benzoate, which may be harder to find. I'm pretty sure that's restricted use and you wouldn't be able to get it. So also, after you do that, pressure wash it off as much as you can. With the leaves being black and they're about to drop all the leaves anyway, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But as far as the bark, pressure wash all that crap off. Jeff Caruth says, hey, Matt, I'm down in Texas with St. Augustine. Our fall soil temps won't see 55 until December. For fall pre-emerge using prodiamine, does it make sense to split it in fall or one app? Jeff, it really comes up to however you want to get it down. Most people do it in a single application, and why that is just to free up that second potential pre-emergent application to go with a different chemistry. So, soil temps at 55, you better get it down way before 55, my friend. So I'm saying like 75, you need to be getting down, because soil temperature does not affect the germination cycle of POA. Water will. So it'll germinate. It germinate at 90 degrees. It's just as it attempts to mature, the heat's going to knock it out before it can establish. So if you're at 75 degrees in soil temperature and say you're 80 during the day and 60 at night, well, that's still POA growing weather. So if you don't have a pre-emerger down, you better get one down. So yeah, there you go. I Hit Seeds wants to know, do you recommend Sedgehammer for short leaf spikes edge? I don't know what that is, I Hit Seeds, but I will say this. Sedgehammer is a fantastic product. It's sulfonylurea. It's slow, but it works exceptionally well for sedges. And it does not work exceptionally well for like globe sedges, but for annual or perennial sedges, yellow nut sedge, that it does just fine. It does okay with repeat applications and things like purple. I am thinking about mixing Blue Note Kentucky Bluegrass to my turf-type tall fescue in transition zone. Is it too late to put the seed down? Is 2 pounds per 1,000 too much to add to an already established turf-type tall fescue? NA1DU, no, it is not too late to put the seed down. I don't know where you are, but if you're in the transition zone, we just had the first cool day today, and I'm pretty certain we're going to have some warm days between now and the end of the year too. So I do not think it's too cold. You can go ahead and do it. I just wouldn't expect to see any of it up until next spring, because that will grow big enough and mature enough for you to be able to visually identify it. Jacob Morissette says, how critical is it for new grass to harden off before the cold weather really sets in? Have an area that's 3 weeks post-seeding that has gone through 3 frosts. It's still growing, but good weather is coming to an end. The plant will harden off because of the cold weather. So ideally, what you want to do is give it as much possible root and just plant biomass development possible leading into winter to set it up, because it will naturally harden itself off. That's just part of the process of dealing with freezing temperatures, is learning how the plant just knows how to harden itself off. Same thing as like when it's facing drought, it knows how to harden itself off. So you can apply special things like trying to get it to harden off, but really the plant's going to take care of itself. So your best bet is to make sure it's got balance of NP and K before it goes to sleep, so it can do all the growth it needs to do. You don't want to overdo it with K, because luxury consumption is the thing, and it may end up leading to disease issues. So just get plenty of your N down, a little bit of P, a little bit of K, you're good to go. Can you use Carbon X as a starter fert? You can, but if you're going to use it as a starter fert, I'd go ahead, get your seed up, and then fertilize after the fact with Carbon X. Let's see here. A real lawn lady says, seeing light green pale tips on my Bermuda. Just a new growth. Fast growth, iron chlorosis. I put down X green at 0.3 pounds in a week ago. Soil pH is 6, but have high phosphorus and calcium. That's a good question. If you're seeing light green pale tips on your Bermuda, chances are what you're actually seeing is it's beginning to transition to fall. So it is, I don't know where you're at, real lawn lady, but if I had to guess, given kind of the temperatures and the way everything's going right now, is that, and we're tracking down on daylight hours per day of actual sunlight exposure. So more than likely what you're seeing is not enough sunlight, and it's beginning to back down its growth rate. Have you seen any good data that proves did my irrigation overseas this weekend? I don't want to do it ever again. I do not know, Thomas. Schaefer Lawn Care and Property Maintenance. Fine fescue does not like clay soil. There you go. There you go. Look at Noah. How about them dogs? Man, everybody's on me about the Georgia game. My goodness. Georgia is ranked, what, number 3 in the nation? UT lost to BYU and Georgia State. Why is it such a shock to everybody that Georgia beat us? My goodness. What's the best way to control ferns and flower beds? Keep them dug up. That is the only way to go about it. Oh no, once I realized after it germinated that it's fine fescue listed above, they're all in-tep cultivars that NC State turf file says are good in North Carolina. What would you suggest now? Is it a mess? London, I do not understand what you're asking here. None of those, those may be fine bladed tall fescues, but all of those are turf type tall fescues. Those are not true fine fescues. They may be fine bladed turf type tall fescues, but not fine fescues. If those are the ones that are recommended by North Carolina NTAP, then those are the ones recommended by North Carolina NTAP. And I can say from Knoxville, I know those are really high rated NTAP cultivars at University of Tennessee. So if you put those down, you're fine. You're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. I think what you're talking about are fine bladed turf type tall fescues, not fine fescue. Do you recommend pre-emergent on new sod, maybe half rate? 100% no, absolutely not. It is a bad idea. Don't do it. Give it a season to root in before you put pre-emergent on new sod. Absolutely not. How good is Spectacle Flow? It's great. Right now, it's great. There's no known resistance right now, and it has the longest duration of any herbicide we have on the market for pre-emergent effects, and it's extremely effective in controlling Poa annua. Not really a whole lot more you can ask for. However, with it not having any cases of resistance yet, and its overuse, I would say it's probably coming sooner than later. So if you are going to use it now while it still works. Lawn Tips is here. What's up? I didn't mean to hit that. I was just trying to dub horn you, Lawn Tips. What's up, dude? Ace of Spades says, Matt, I've not only noticed a relationship with moisture and Kalinga, but also the retention of moisture with active Kalinga. I hit a lawn hard with Slayer last month. Soil was really moist by nature, no irrigation. Once the Kalinga was burned out, the soil was much more dry. Do you know of any studies on the relationship with Kalinga actually retaining moisture? It's a good question, and hang on, I have a theory about it. I don't know of any studies, but I do have a theory. Okay, so If you look at a Kalinga plant, it actually has a significant amount of mass both above and below ground, and it's extremely dense. In fact, it is one of the few weeds that can get so dense that it can actually annihilate all of your existing grass. It gets that tight. So then you actually look at the leaf tissue, and the leaf tissue is going to be extremely waxy to try and resist, because yes, it proliferates in wet areas, but what it also does is that it will hold and live through extreme drought too. It's crazy. We used to plant them in rain gardens because in the spring, wintertime, they would just be completely buried underwater and then extremely dry during the summertime. And it would still do really well, and it would be green and healthy and thriving as part of that environment. So it's by nature of the plant to get so tight, I think it resists a lot of movement out of the soil, transpiring through the plant into the atmosphere. So not only do you have a dense cover, you have a plant that doesn't transpire a lot. It's trying to hold the water there as much as possible. By nature, that is the function of that plant. So I would say exactly as you noticed, that relationship is exactly what is happening. Let's see here. More sound effects. That's what I'm talking about right now. When I jump to the bottom, let me get caught up here. What about? I do not have any Halloween tune. I don't know if clams are actually happy. What's the best time of year to apply K? My soil test this past spring said I am super low in K. Thomas, I see that in 99% of the time. So what I would recommend is next season, as you're coming out of dormancy, is applying a 1-to-1 into K. Excrete. and so basically what X-Green does, so you're going to pull naturally for any amount of nitrogen you apply to the grass, and the grass is actively growing. If it's actively growing, that means it's taking up nitrogen. That means the nitrogen is the driving agent behind pulling up potassium. So think about it this way. You can apply winter fertilizer because the grass isn't growing, right? It's not going to be taken up until next spring. As it's being taken up and utilized next spring, that means it's pulling additional potassium out of the ground. That's when you want to supply it, because it's typically coming out of the ground for every 2 parts of nitrogen, 1 part of potassium is coming out of the ground. For tall fescue, for your Bermuda guys, it's almost 1-to-1. Almost 1-to-1. So for every 2 pounds of N you apply, you're pulling a pound of K out of the ground. So for your spring fertilizer, so you apply it in the fall, right? And that's going to be used in the spring, right? Your nitrogen is going to be used in the spring. So, but in spring, you normally fertilize. So then is a good time to apply an N to K 1-to-1 ratio, because you have a doubled up application of nitrogen that's down, plus you have the potassium on the back end to counter it, right? Because it's being pulled 2-to-1. Now you applied a 1-to-1, so it will create balance. That's a horrible way to explain it, but that's what I intended to, is what I'm trying to say, is apply a 1-to-1 in the spring, N to K. And if you continue to apply a 1-to-1 N to K, so say you apply 4 pounds of nitrogen for the year, that means you're telling the plant to pull 2 pounds of actual potassium out of the ground. So make sure you're getting down at minimum 2 pounds of potassium, because that's just bringing you to baseline. That's bringing you to zero. That means you didn't take your soil any further depleted in potassium. So if you apply 4 pounds of K, then you can begin to build an excess reserve in the soil. So that way you can skip a couple of potassium maps in the future. If you apply 4 pounds of K and 4 pounds of N, right, you have 2 pounds of excess there. But depending on how deficient you are, that may not even be enough to pull you out of a deficient stage. So creating that soil balance, doing the remediation applications, it's important. Okay, that horn woke me up. As long as it's at, in short answer, Thomas, is if it's growing, you should be applying K. T. Riley, is Carbon X a good choice for final winterizing fertilizer? Yes, absolutely. Matt, any tips to keep brown spots off hydrangea leaves? Chad, it depends on what the brown spots are. If it's overwatering, it could be the turgor pressure that's causing it. If it is exposed to sun, it could be sunspots. You can remediate those by keeping it dry after irrigation. Sometimes will help. but I'd have to have an identifier why you have brown spots on your hydrangea leaves. London says it was bare dirt that seeded these cultivars on. Used X-Start and RGS in the second half of X-Start today, 14. There was a lot of space between grass, so I applied more today. Oh no, rookie mistake. It happens. I should have waited as first. We'll use Carbonex 15 days, which will be 30 to 40. Hope that's okay to use after initial X-Start, day of seeding, second half, day 14. I would let it go. You can put it down to 15 to 20 days, but since you put it down today, I wait like 30 and then apply it. You should be good to go there. There's no reason to get super aggressive with it. Let it get a little meat to it first, then get aggressive with it. Will elemental sulfur at 25,000 pounds, 25 pounds per thousand burn warm season grass during the summer? Yes, absolutely it will. Joe, the lawn janitor. Hey, Matt, can you level a fescue lawn with sand? Sorry about UT loss. You can. It's just not ideal because it doesn't work like a rhizomatous or stoloniferous grass to be able to push through it and work atop of the sand cap. So you can do it. You just have to do it very, very small incrementally. Do not expect to go in with a ½ inch of sand and the grass to be okay. You're probably going to have to go in with like a quarter, probably less than that, maybe like a 1/10 of an inch of sand and build it up that way, little by little. Let's see here. As far as I can see, the world will be dominated by Bermuda. It will, except for, people in upstate New York. They will be just fine. Do you think an application or two of humic acid this time for new bent grass growing will be helpful? Tom, if you have the nutrients in the soil, then yeah, it will be helpful. If you're deficient in a bunch of nutrients, no, you'll see no benefit from it. I was pulling a UT. I always pull against Auburn too, but last night I couldn't watch the Auburn versus Gator game either. I just had to turn it off. I'm done. Ken Harbison says, thank you for answering my previous question. When going into spring, should I use a high nitrogen fertile, low nitrogen, since I put it to bed with high nitrogen, slower fast release Carbonex or 818? I like coming out with 818. If you're really trying to blow the doors off and express somebody, then you could totally do it with Carbonex. And there's nothing wrong with that. And lots of people would do it. But personally, me, like if it was me managing it, I would probably be doing like the 818. And not the Carbonex. But I'd be doing like 818, 5 pounds, 6 pounds per thousand, something like that, coming into spring. Wish that beverage was a Diet Coke and your shirt was off. It's pretty much a Diet Coke. It is a Zevia 0 calorie shirt, 0 calorie soda. But my shirt isn't on. Okay. Best, no, you're okay. You're okay, London D. This is part of having a live show. You have to do that. 25 pounds per thousand. Do not go over 5 pounds per thousand in a single app. Yep, I would say that's about the best too. Ronald Pierce says, best winter fert for a recent seeded turf type 12 fescue, take a bluegrass emission. Won't apply it till mid-November. pH in soil 7.5. Ronald Pierce, that is a great example of a perfect place to use something like Carbonex. E-Ball Low says, hey, Matt, what is the best time to level an established turf type tall fescue lawns, fall or spring? Man, it's a hard one. I would probably go spring. Man, I don't know. It may be fall. In fact, I think it would be fall. I'm going to go fall, 100%. All in, fall. Really, it's probably up to preference, but I just me thinking it out loud, if you do it in fall to give the grass long enough to adapt to it, so that way it'll be more tolerant going into spring and then going into the heat of summer. Springmaker says, I overseeded 3 weeks ago, turf type tall fescue, 80%, rye, 20%, Indianapolis. Super hot, 90-degree humid, water like crazy. Notice red thread and what looks like gray leaf spot on seedlings. Best fungicide to apply? As late as you are, I would say you're probably out of the disease window, so you don't have to worry about applying anything. Once you get out of 80-degree temperatures, neither of those are really going to be active anymore, so no point in applying fungicide. Turf and Tundra junkie, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody loves a Toyota Tundra. What do you recommend, sand soil compost for leveling or a combo? It depends on whatever you can work with easiest. If you're doing turf tight tall fescue, man, I've done it just about every way imaginable. I really didn't prefer sand because I couldn't get any of the sand, any of the seed I overseeded with. I couldn't keep it wet enough to germinate. I didn't like soil because it always had too much crap in it. And compost was okay if I had a good source of compost. Let me tell you what one thing has happened, though, is I've gotten compost before that was so high in salt content that it smoked the yard. So that's always kind of frustrating. P. Riley says, Matt, a follow-up question. If new sod needs an entire season before it's ready for pre-emerge, should I not apply it next spring after doing a full reno this fall? If you did, well, it depends on what kind of grass type you have. So if you do a full reno of Bermuda grass in the fall and it doesn't have really a chance to root very much going in the spring, then no, I wouldn't do it in the spring. But if you're dealing with cool season grass and it's very actively growing in the fall, then yeah, you can put it down in the spring because it's had a season to grow, that being fall. Fall is not a growing season for warm season grass unless you get it down in like August. Then you can get it rooted, and then you can move into the spring and put down your pre-emergent. Jeff Cruz says, speaking of potassium, is water-soluble K just as good as granular? I've been having a hell of a time trying to find granular potassium sulfate. Granular potassium sulfate's fine. You can use, what is your water-soluble K you're talking about? Potassium chloride? You can use that too. Just understand it has a higher salt index, so it's going to be harder for you to go out with higher rates. So what was the seed rate you use or recommended now for a turf type tall fescue seed rate? How many pounds per thousand would you suggest? Bare soil, just to get an idea. Bare soil, probably 8 pounds per thousand. Barry Camarillo says, Texas St. Aug noticed yellowing around trees, so thought tree winning nutrient battle. Okay. This week noticed another St. Aug turf yellowing and around an iron pole. Interesting ideas. Huh. I don't know. Yellowing around trees, I see that often. And one thing that could be, Barry, is this. So when around the trees you have the tree may be sloughing off part of its root system, so depositing a fair amount of woody material in the soil. And by that woody material coming off and becoming dying and becoming organic matter in the soil, it's wood. So very, very high carbon to nitrogen ratio there versus like a green leaf is much lower carbon to nitrogen ratio. So once you get over a certain carbon to nitrogen ratio, typically it is going to rob the plant of nitrogen because the nitrogen is going to have to come somewhere. So that's why you never like top dress a lawn with wood chips, because wood chips has such a high C to N ratios that, yeah, you're getting a lot of carbon as it mineralizes, but at the same time, you're also pulling a lot of nitrogen away from your grass. So if I had to guess with the tree roots are sloughing and it's pulling nitrogen away from the grass. That's why you got yellowing there. Around an iron pole, if I had to guess, it may be ferric toxicity. It could be any one of the other metals in there, depending on so say, for instance, that you're in Texas, so I'm going to guess you're super high pH. There may be something in there that is exceptionally high, exceptionally soluble at a high pH. I don't know. You may be super low where you are too. I mean, it kind of runs the gamut. So if it is super low, it could be over solubilizing like ferric oxide, and that's what's causing yellowing. So I'm not as sure on the pole. Not as sure there. Tom Surfcare says, some of my bent grass was hit by disease. Sprayed fungicide a month before and thought I wouldn't need another app, but was wife. Will grass come back next year, or should I overseed a little? It's hard to say. Chances are it should be coming back this fall. If it doesn't look like it is, I'd probably seed a little. It's been 4 weeks since new lawn install with 18-24-12 starter fertilizer applied, 2100 ammonium sulfate Friday. I still have X-Start left. Can I put that down still this year at Northern Indiana? Yeah, you can if you are if you're deficient in phosphorus. If you're not, save it for next year. Hey man, when will X-Ray and X-Start be available in Oregon? How annoying is all the licensing process? My goodness, you have no idea how annoying it is. It's unbelievable. And the problem is that they're making changes so fast to the way things are labeled, is that even before you can get one label approved, they're making a change and saying, okay, I appreciate you making that change. We recommend it, but it's changed again, so we need you to change it again. And then you make that change, and then it goes back before review, and then they say, oh, okay, well, it changed this, so you need to change the label to fit that. So that's happened about 3 times to us on multiple products, and it's just a nightmare. It is really a nightmare, and I'll tell you from my perspective, it makes me totally not want to sell fertilizer there because I have to spend so much time dealing with it. But I'll keep doing it just for you, Austin. I will keep doing it just for you. My phone croaked when you were talking about low-K. Low-K, apply it. Robert Butler. I don't know what question that was. I'm saying there's been a lot of it. Thanks, Matt, for the answer. I have plenty of Carbon X that I've been using early in the spring. Yep, there you go. And you can, like I said, you totally can. But if you're deficient in potassium, then you probably want to run like X-Green if you're deficient in potassium. How tall would you cut a yard with Super Seed Store blend of Regenerate 4th Millennium Amity and Raptor 3? I mean, it's tall fescue, so I would cut it like tall fescue. Lambert says, Matt, in your area, what percentage of lawns are fescue versus warm season? Any St. Augustine that far north? No, there's not any here. There's a couple centipede lawns here. When I was in Memphis, we had more St. Augustine. But here, as far as like maintained turf, 90% of it is fescue, 10% is Bermuda grass. But it's hilarious because if you were to ask me that question in August, when the Bermuda has really had a chance to come out and take hold of things, it would be about 70% Bermuda grass, 30% fescue. And then everybody spends all kinds of money on overseeding it with fescue. So that way next spring, it's all, and over winter, it's all 90% fescue, 10% Bermuda grass again. That's the game we play. All right, let's see here. Kenny Cooper says, I think I have algae black, slimy, almost rubbery feeling. Northern Illinois, full sun. Winter is near. Should I do anything about it, or when will winter kill it off? It sounds like you have algae, and you would be fine. I wouldn't worry about it at all. All right, look at this one. Roshan said, I applied strobe, propiconazole, K-Phyte, potassium phosphite, for those of you that are wondering, mixed last week because I was seeing dollar spot and rust. Was that good to do that? I applied Carbonex yesterday, 2404. Will this carry me in the spring? No, I would probably do one more application, Roshan, after it stops growing. So that'll be sometime around Thanksgiving. So I would plan on one more application there. As far as the dollar spot and rust, yes, strobium and propiconazole will work there. K-Phyte, it's not really going to have an effect on any of it. It works more on Pythium than anything. The dollar spot might get a little freaked out with strobilurin and strobi, but meaning that the dollar spot doesn't really care if strobi's applied. It's just going to do what it's going to do. But with you applying Carbon X, chances are it's not going to have it. That'll push out all of your dollar spot, so you don't have to worry about that. Sean Hartman says, what is something to use against grubs in Northwest Iowa? Would prefer a natural alternative to GrubX. I know I am too late for this year, but looking forward to next year. Depending on the species of grubs, you can do something like milky spores, but if you don't have that specific type of grub, then there's not really anything you can do other than that. Somewhat recommended Diamond K for SOP. It is a powder. Yeah, it is. And it's either used in irrigation or boom spray because it's soluble. It's 0050, and they say it is a soil treatment. Will help deficient soils. It is, but let me warn you, Cars YouTube, Diamond K is granular SOP, but SOP in general is only soluble to a point in water. So probably the highest concentration you can get in water would be like a pound of material dissolved in water. So if you think about it, if you need to apply a pound of K or a half pound of K, you're going to have to apply a gallon of water per 1,000 square feet with a half pound of this SOP dissolved into it. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. It requires a significant amount to go into solution to get down any of it in any kind of remediating way. It's just not that soluble, where you could take something like potassium chloride and dissolve 5 pounds, 6 pounds in a gallon of water. So just understand there's a caveat there. And if you dissolved a pound in a gallon of water, it's something like it would give you an analysis of like 0.005. Something like that. Eric Ellis said, just wanted to give Carbon X a shout out. That's what I'm talking about. Darkest lawn in the neighborhood, and it's not even close. That's what I am talking about. Charlie's Compost, looking for you. Charlie's Compost in the house. That's what I'm talking about. For those of you that do not know, Charlie's one of our partners. He is part of the poultry farm partner who is going to be at the GIE on Thursday. So for those of you that would like to meet the team behind the team, we got them all coming up. We got them all coming up. So you will get to meet Charlie at Charlie's Compost. You get to meet Jim and Dick Ryhall, Matt Ryder, all the guys who make all this stuff work. We got Carson that's going to be up there. John Borden, the mystery man, is going to be up there. And it's going to be a really good time. Charlie, I am glad you are here. Ben Spurlock, I do not know what wife means. Nobody does. Rich Proto, you had excellent results with egg screen. That's what I'm talking about. The lawnmower, go purple wave. That's what I'm How many Christian Brothers guys are in here? How many Christian Brothers guys are in here? The lawnmower, did you go to Christian Brothers? That's funny. What is happening here? I hear lawn leveling should be done while actively growing. What happens when it's done while grass is growing, is slowing down, or even when it's dormant? Any wiggle room there? Not really. I mean, it depends on what kind of grass you're working with. If you're doing it with Bermuda grass, yeah, it doesn't really matter. The chances are, though, if you do it while it's dormant and it doesn't have a chance to grow up through it, then it's all going to wash away and you'll lose it. If you're dealing with like fescue and you do it, probably a little bit of the same thing. So, but if you do it with like compost or something like that, yeah, you'll be all right. You know, it may smother a little bit of the grass, but it should be fine. Just, you want to get it to grow through it and just get it to so it can hold everything in place. Basically is what I'm trying to say. Just get it to hold in place. Let's see. Marco Canchola, best seed that is resistant to fungus, cool seasons, Southern California. Marco Canchola, you want to go to Google and type into the search bar ntep.org, hit enter, and that should take you to the NTEP trials that are performed at ntep.org, and take a look at what is doing best in your area. Ben Spurlock, I see you over there. I see you. Somebody asked about Halloween, and I did have it. Will Carbon Earth merchandise be at GIE? Brett Schmidt, no, it will not. It will not, because at GIE you can't do like exchanges there or anything. So, but we'll have some stuff there, but it won't be much. Best three-way herbicide combo. Eric, there's a million different ways I can answer that. So if you check my guide to Ultimate Guide to Broadleaf Weeds, then you might be able to pick out the ones you need to use. So if you're going after, stop it, Lushy. Stop it, Lushy. If you're dealing with cool season grass or warm season grass, that's going to have an effect. If you're going after like wild violets and cool season grass, Robert, did you ask? Oh wait, I'll go back up. I make mistakes. I said it at the beginning of the show. I make mistakes. So I usually say this, if I skip your question, I haven't answered it, feel free to ask again. I made a mistake, Robert. I'm sorry. I will get to it. So for three-way combos, you could do, if it's wild violets you're going after, you may want to use something like triclopyr-based. If you're going after something that you maybe got a vegetable salad that has a little bit of creeping Charlie in it, you may want to do creeping fluroxapyr. Golly, my brain is just... So it all depends, and if it's warm outside, you probably want to do something that's amine formulated. If it's cold outside, you maybe want to do something that's ester formulated. So there's not a best three-way herbicide combo out there. It's all about what you need to have happen. How about that? All right, Robert, let me find this. I'm also really low in K. Soil test says 4 pounds. I'm in New Jersey, so it's getting late. I've put out about 1 pound per 1,000 so far. Is it okay to put out more soon or wait until spring? yes, you can go ahead and put it out now and build the bank up. So that way, now understand if you've, okay, let me make this understand. So that's building the bank in your soil, right? So that way, when you hit the high nitrogen usage point of the spring, which is naturally going to come, it gets to the perfect temperature, is robbing nitrogen out of any and everything it possibly can. You couldn't possibly apply enough. It's just naturally growing violently, and it's pulling in from everywhere. Okay, because of that, you're going to be pulling K out of the soil at an alarming rate. So getting it down now and building up your bank in anticipation for next spring is good. However, there is a caveat. You're in New Jersey. Kentucky bluegrass is particularly sensitive to fall K applications in snow mold. There was a study about this that snow mold actually increased with fall K applications on Kentucky bluegrass. So if you have that, you may not want to do that and then begin applying the bulk of your potassium in the spring. There we go, Robert Butler. There we go. I got it. Cars YouTube, X-Start is awesome. Looking forward to using Carbon X for the first time. I look forward to you using Carbon X for the first time. That's what I'm talking about, sir. 3 lines only. I maintain a biweekly application of AMS, 28 pounds an acre, plus K, 0.07 pounds per thousand, plus wetting agent at 36 ounces per acre, H2O. In the AMS creates surface oxygen, and that is how come I use WA to wetting agent to take the O down into the root zone. Also, a little ammonium is needed for best P uptake by turf. The K is to strengthen the cell walls and regulate H2O in the turf. FYI, I have calciferous soil and pH was 8.6 months ago and is currently 7.5. So nitrification occurring with AMS application have reduced the pH in this type line increment. That if that helps anyone curious about what may occur with AMS applications as stated. Yeah, that's actually a great idea. I did a video is all about ammonium sulfate. So it's good stuff. You can check it out. There's lots of advantages for doing it. One of the things we talked about is the big oxygen release that occurs when you're using sulfated nutrients. I like the idea of using a wetting agent with it. Never thought about that. That's pretty good stuff. That's pretty cool. I've never had anybody give me rates before, in 28 pounds per acre followed by 0.07 pounds per thousand. You gave me acres and thousands. You tricked me there, 3 lines only. You tricked me. But that would be 28 pounds to, what would that be? Less than 4 pounds per acre of that. So I would run your K application up significantly. So if you're applying 28 pounds per acre of ammonium sulfate and you're dealing with calciferous soils, and I'm assuming you're dealing with like St. Augustine or something, I would be applying close to a 1-to-1 on your N to K there, because that's pretty low. That's like a 7-to-1. You're probably pulling way more K out of the ground than that, because you're not supplying it all through foliar applications. But you may be doing that through granular. I don't know. Okay, let's see here. What is the best way to deal with damping off after a reseeding and heat spell? Raleigh, North Carolina should finally have consistent cool weather with cooler temps. That's a good question. You may need to reseed. I don't know. It depends on how bad it is damping off. Kevin McCarthy says, it sounds like Jim Cramer's taking over the show. I don't know what that means, but how about that? What's snow mold? I almost skipped you again, Ken Harbison. I don't know what I skipped. Just ask it if I skipped it. It's an accident. Oh, I found it. I put an app of Carbon X on my neighbor's lawn. They never watered it in, nor did we get any rain. Will it stay in the lawn or will it dry out? Just now getting rain today. That's a good question. I don't know how long ago it was. Did you put it down 3 months ago, or did you put it down a week ago? If you put it down a week ago, I wouldn't worry about it. If you did it 3 months ago, I'd probably worry about it. Let's see here. What's snow mold? Snow mold is a disease. How long should I wait after overseed to hit the lawn with ferrous ammonium sulfate? You probably don't need to do it this year, the lawn stripes, but if you wanted to wait till your second cut, then do it. My head hurts trying to figure out growing degree days. Just use a calculator and get the statistic you need. In North Carolina, I assume adding K now will be okay for fescue yards. I didn't apply Solucal yet, since you suggested not at the same time as X-Start. What's a good window after applying starter fert to apply Solucal? I would give it about a month, and then, or maybe a little longer, actually. I'd probably just wait till the grass stopped growing and then apply your Solucal. That's what I would do. Mary Camarillo says, I applied Carbonex 3 weeks around the tree, no impact. pH is 8.1. Should I apply citric acid, then reapply Carbonex around the tree? Yes. Not necessarily. So if indeed you are dealing with the C to N ratio issue, is that you may not be able to get enough nitrogen down on it right now because the wood is composting there. So I don't think you're actually going to be able to fix it until it does correct, until it finishes mineralizing that wood. So you can keep pounding it with nitrogen, and that'll help it speed up the composting process faster because you'll have a little more balance in your C to N ratio. But I wouldn't expect it to alter the performance of the turf a whole lot until that's done breaking down. Is there anything I can do to help protect the lawn from road salt for the upcoming winter weather? No. My daughter is asking what's the difference between zoysia and Bermuda grass. A lot. Jenny Palma says, purchased my house back in 2005 and never done anything to my lawn cause I'm clueless. I would like to make it better. What would you recommend the direction I take? I don't know where you are. Oh, you have a cool season lawn. Okay, so now we're in seeding weather. The first thing I would do would be aerate and overseed it, or anything you can do to get seed down and get it to come up. Water it, get it to come up. That will be your first best step. Then in the spring, put down a pre-emergent and also apply something like a broadleaf weed control to get rid of any of your broadleaf weeds. How long do herbicides last in the bottle? I applied a mix of 2,4-D dicamba and panoxylum with great knockdown. 2 months later, it didn't work as well. There's lots of things I could go into it, but as long as it wasn't diluted, 2,4-D dicamba and panoxylum, that sounds like Roundup for Lawns, something like that. I don't know. But if you mix those herbicides into a container and you let it sit for 2 months, of course it didn't work as well. Was there anything else in the tank with it? Because a lot of times you may add something to the tank to try and get it down in one application. That may affect the efficacy. The other thing, too, is that you may have like a clog in the nozzle or something like that. It may be a minute one that doesn't affect your spray pattern, but it does affect the amount of material you got down. So lots of different things there. But as long as it came out of the same container of concentrate when you mixed it, it should be fine. And that means you have an external factor that affected the results. The other thing, one of the big things that people do not realize is that if your weeds are under drought conditions, they will not react as well. If they are actively growing and there's plenty of soil moisture down, your weed controls are going to work very effectively. So there we go. How did Rise Tarf Type Tall Fescue come about? Any improvement on spreading aspect, or is it still a one season and done on your yard? Pretty much a one season and done on your yard. How did it come about? I'm not exactly sure. I think it actually came from this is for you, Sally, and that is for you, Kenny Cooper. I gotta turn that down, blow out my eardrums. All right, real quick, hang on. There was one thing I wanted to share. For those of you that are interested, I have started doing this, and it's just kind of a fun little thing I'm doing, and I'm doing it really for nobody else other than me. If you are interested in the story of what it was like to put together what is Carbon Earth and I'll be talking about a lot of the research I do as far as my role with the company Carbon Earth. I put this together, and it may be interesting to some people. It may not be, but this is I've started doing a podcast, and I've got 4 episodes up, and it starts. Episode 1 is the accidental idea, and it works its way up from there. You can also find it on Spotify. Not yet approved for iTunes. Maybe it will be at some point. But for those of you that are interested in hearing about from the very, very, very early conception of the Grass Factor, I've started doing a podcast, and you can learn about that. So, okay. Let's see here. I do not know how they developed rhizomatous tall fescue. If I had to guess, it was from genetically modifying Kentucky 31. Because if I recall correctly, I believe Kentucky 31 was the first rhizomatous tall fescue to have been discovered. Would you recommend a 1-to-1 NK ratio all season for warm season turf? Yes, unless it is not actively growing. Then you could get away. Well, I would probably just run that unless you already have a bank of K in the soil. So if you're already at 100 parts per million or 200 parts per million, there's no real reason to run N to K. You can just run N at that point, get it down to about 80 parts per million, and then start running a 1-to-1 N to K. So it depends on how much money you want to blow through because can be expensive. How late in the season, temperature-wise, can aerate, RGS, and Humic 12 be applied? I do not know. I would probably reach out to the Greene County guys because I'm not sure at all. Johnny Fescue says, good fall armyworm activity map available for Southeast United States. Fall armyworm, I do not. Johnny Fescue, I do not know of one, unfortunately. Eric Kincaid says, I understand why you have to rotate individual fungicides, but I hear you don't have to rate as often if you apply a combo like Azox and Prop. Is that true? Yes, it is, because you are actually attacking multiple sites of action instead of just one. And so what happens is that the plant can genetically mutate to fight that one site of action. Versus if you have two, that means it would have to undergo 2 genetic mutations to do it. And so to have those happen at the same time would be extremely difficult. So your number one best thing to do is to combine fungicides. Then the second best thing you can do is rotate. Would applying a rate of Yucca Shiderga be any benefit to grass plants or soil? No, not unless you combined it with something else. Yucca itself provides nothing to the plant. However, if you apply it with something that would respond well to a surfactant, it would do really well because it's a good surfactant. Bassmaster 1953 says, we cut down crepe myrtle. It is coming up in lawn from roots. Any solution to kill the sprouts? Triclopyr, sir. That would be your best bet. Matt, seeing lots of tiny clover and spurge sprouting all over a lawn that was renovated. Some morning glory as well. Will this die off a winter? Probably not. And I know it was renovated, but if you got your grass up, I mean, cool season grass is very tolerant, a 3-way, so you should be good to go. Mark Taylor's here from New Jersey. What's going on? Because, sir, someone got a stream deck. I did not. I got a Rode Procaster. That's all I'm going to say about that, Richard Freeman. Over 2 weeks ago, Turf Tight Tall Fescue. Can I apply tenacity and 2,4-D at the same time? Yes, you can, but not after 2 weeks. Wait till 4 weeks. James Turner says, I'm in Long Island. I did my overseeding approximately 2 weeks ago. I ordered Carbon X for my winterizer. Can I use it with tenacity, RGS, Humic 12, and aerate? Yeah, that's fine. I don't know why you need to apply all that, so you could probably just get away with half of that. That's just a lot going down at one time, James. And I'm pretty sure that is not going to give you any kind of competitive advantage over the other. Okay, everybody, I am getting ready to call it. Still trying to wrap my head around the different end sources. Fast release is better in the fall, slow release, spring, summer. Summer, if you need to fertilize in the summer, Robert Butler. Slow release, I just don't really see a whole lot of action for it unless you're dealing with something like a fairway, and you need to manage the, if you only have a budget to do like one application and you're trying to balance budget with anything else. So the other thing, too, could be is that if you got a lot of water around and you need to mitigate or drip feed nitrogen to mitigate the amount of runoff that may occur. So instead of using traditional slow releases like polymer-coated or methylene urea, that methylene urea would have to break down by microbial action. Mineralization of the microbes will chew down the carbon chains and release the urea, or you would have to do a polymer coating, which is going to deposit microplastics in the soil. So it's better to use biochar as your release agent, and not just biochar. It's going to be homogenized to biochar like Carbon X. I'm just kidding. Silly plugs for my own product. That's what I'm talking about. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had a great show. For those of you that are wondering, please check out my podcast on Spotify, or you can find it on Anchor. Soon to be coming to Google Podcasts, soon to be coming to iTunes Podcast. I really, 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 really appreciate you coming in. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Y'all have just a fantastic evening.
Never gonna stop this fire. I was born to be making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. It's plain reality. I was born to be something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire, this fire. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire, this fire. I was born to be making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. It's plain reality. I was born to be something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. I was born to be making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. It's plain reality. Burn, burn. I was born to be something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. Oh, this fire, this fire. I'm the burning best of this fire. I wanna burn out. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.